Our weekly reading, Kiteitzeh, has one of the largest collections of mitzvot. It's hard to exactly calculate the number of mitzvot in every parsha. It depends on sometimes what's considered a separate mitzvah. There's a general tradition, of course, that everybody knows that there are 613 commandments in the Torah altogether. But it's sometimes difficult to know which ones are considered separate commandments, which ones fall in the category of all one commandment. But whatever the case may be, by any counting, Kiteitzeh is certainly one of the most loaded with mitzvot parshiot. And in particular, I wanted to discuss one mitzvah that there is a lot of discussion about, and that is the mitzvah of sending away the mother bird. The Torah says if you're walking and you see a bird that's hovering over its nest, there are either eggs in it or little chicks that don't fly yet, and the mother bird is hovering on top of them. So you're not allowed to take both the mother bird and its young or its eggs. Rather, you have to send away the mother bird, and then you're allowed to take the eggs or the chicks. So there is a lot of discussion about this commandment, but in particular, the Talmud, the Mishna, and the Talmud tell us that if a person prays to Hashem and says, "Please have mercy on us, just like you have mercy on the mother bird," then this kind of person should be shut up. Meaning, it's not a correct prayer. It's not correct to say that Hashem is merciful to the mother bird in some sense. So the question is why? What's wrong with this type of prayer? There are a lot of different explanations. The Babylonian Talmud gives two explanations, and then there are other explanations given. The most accepted explanation is that Hashem, in this case, is not necessarily kind to the mother bird. If he would be kind to the mother bird, he would tell us not to take the bird, not to take its young. Right? In fact, it's extremely painful for the bird when its young are taken away. Right? There is this instinct that the mother has usually. The mother would be ready to maybe die rather than having its young taken away. So this commandment is not necessarily a type of mercy. The question is then, what is it? So what is the purpose of such a commandment? Well, Rambam, in his Guide to the Perplexed, of course, Rambam wrote a lot of books in his life, but there are two main books that he wrote. One that is an all-encompassing work that includes some philosophy, but mostly technical details of the commandments, and it's called Mishna Torah. It's that's the most famous book of Maimonides, the Rambam, Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon. It's actually hinted in the Torah, interestingly. Rabbi Weissmandel, I think, discovered this, that there is one place in the entire Torah where Rambam, Reish Mem Beit Mem, is spelled by the first letters of the four consecutive words. Rabot Moftai Be'eretz Mitzrayim. It's in Parshat Bo. The Torah tells us that Hashem says He is going to make wonders in the land of Egypt. And that's where the only place in the Torah where Reish Mem Beit Mem Rambam is spelled. And of course, Rambam lived in Egypt most of his life and was a wondrous doctor there. He was treating the king of the time, Saladin, and he wrote a lot of treatises on medicine as well. He was a philosopher, he was a doctor, he had a lot of professions. Of course, he was primarily a Torah scholar and a philosopher, but also the medical profession was one of his known skills. At any rate, so it could be that the Torah is hinting that Rambam, right, is I will make wonders in the land of Egypt. And if you count from the word Moshe, which was the name of Rambam, Rabbi Moshe ben Maimon, if you count from that word every 50 letters, Rabbi Weissmandel discovered, you get Mishna, and then you skip 613 letters, which is the number of commandments in the Torah and discussed in Mishnah Torah. And then again, every 50 letters is Torah. So the name of the work of Rambam, Mishnah Torah, is spelled right there in the Torah. Every 50 letters Mishnah, then 613, skip, and then the word Torah, Mishnah Torah. Repeating of Torah, you could say. I mean, maybe that's what this means. Mishnah Torah, by the way, was an expression that we just read in the last parsha in the context of the king who has to copy the Torah, I guess. There are different explanations what Mishna Torah means in this particular case. The Chazal used to call Mishna Torah the entire book of Dvarim, repetition of Torah. So the Rambam called his main work Mishna Torah. And his other work that is very famous is Moreh Nevuchim, the Guide to the Perplexed. So there he is trying to explain the reasons for commandments, and he's using a lot of philosophy, and very few people study this type of work. As opposed to Mishna Torah that every Orthodox Jew usually has at home and studies quite often and sees the quotes of it. And of course, the Shulchan Aruch, our main code of law, is primarily based, at least more than a third of it is based on the decisions of Rambam and the Mishna Torah. So that's an extremely popular and important work. In fact, Lubavitcher Hasidim study it every day. They have a Seder, they have a particular order in which they study one chapter of Mishna Torah every day. I think some people study 3 chapters. Whatever the case may be, that's certainly an incredibly popular work. On the other hand, the Guide to the Perplexed, the Moreh Nevuchim, is a much less popular work. Even though Rambam may have considered it one of his primary works, maybe even the greatest work he wrote, but it's far more something that is only specialists can understand, people who versed in philosophy and things like that. But at any rate, I never studied the entire Moreh Nevuchim, or even a large part of it. I only saw certain quotes and sometimes looked into it. But I as most of our Orthodox Jews, I'm not an expert in these types of philosophical writings. Whatever the case may be, Moreh Nevuchim, the Rambam writes there that we follow, meaning he follows the opinion that there are reasons for commandments. And that's why this book is written. Primary purpose of this work is to understand the possible reasons for commandments. We don't know all the reasons, but at least to give some reasons for commandments. Meaning, Rambam assumes that the opinion that says that that you're not allowed to pray to Hashem, have mercy on us, just like you had mercy on the mother bird, the opinion that says that the reason is because this is not mercy, that opinion holds that there is no reasons for commandments altogether. Meaning there's nothing we can understand about commandments. We just have to follow what Hashem tells us. We don't understand the reasons for commandments. That's how Rambam understood that opinion. But he says we follow another opinion, that there are reasons for commandments. Ramban, however, a different Jewish sage, right, the abbreviation is very similar, and that's why in yeshiva world they usually try to put a stress on a different letter so that it's clear which one we're talking about, Rambam and Ramban. They don't say Rambam and Ramban, because then a mem and nun are very similar in sounding. You could make a mistake. Somebody who hears might mistake them. So that's why they say Rambam when they talk about Maimonides, and Ramban on stress on the last syllable when they talk about Nachmanides, Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman. So this sage lived in Spain and then later in the land of Israel, a little bit later than Rambam, maybe a generation or two later than Rambam. And he was also a mystic. He was a Kabbalist. So he left us a lot of different works also. And he writes that he disagrees basically with the interpretation that Rambam gives to this opinion of why you cannot pray to Hashem, that have mercy on us like you had on the mother bird. Meaning Ramban says that nobody ever argued that there are reasons for commandments. I guess he means not just that there are reasons, but that we can understand some of those reasons. That Hashem gave us a Torah with the intent that we will try to dig into it and understand not just how to keep the mitzvot, but also will give some reasons for mitzvot. There's definitely reasons for commandments. Nobody ever argued about it according to Ramban. So Rambam, like I said, has to say that it's only according to some opinions there are reasons for commandments, and that's the opinions he follows in the Guide to the Perplexed. Ramban says everybody agrees there are reasons for commandments. It's just that the reason for this particular commandment is not specifically mercy, or at least not mercy of Hashem. Again, the argument being that if Hashem had mercy on the mother bird, he would actually tell us not to take neither the mother nor the chicks or the eggs. So since he allows us to take the chicks or the eggs, it must be that the reason for this is not because Hashem has mercy on the mother bird. But it does develop, according to Ramban, some mercy in us when we don't take the mother together with the chicks. What's interesting is that, in fact, some commentators, including the Vilna Gaon, thought that this particular commandment doesn't have mercy at all. There is no mercy in this particular commandment, not from the perspective of the people, and not, of course, from the perspective of Hashem himself, but rather the reasons must be different. I saw a very interesting explanation of this commandment, which, by the way, partially may be based on Rambam himself, but is well explained by other writings later, and that is that what this commandment teaches us, that we should not think along the lines, as there's a proverb in many languages. I think in English it says something like, no good deed ever goes unpunished, or something like that. That a lot of cynical people, a lot of skeptics say, look, what's good about being righteous, or what's good about doing good to others? All you get in return is pain, sorrow, right? Being good is not good, basically, right? And what would be the lesson if a hunter could come up to the mother and take it with its young? The truth is, the mother could fly away. What's the reason the mother is staying? Because it's trying to protect its young, right? The only reason you could take the mother bird, it would be possible for you to take the mother bird, is because the bird is trying to protect the young against the hunter, the person who is trying to take away her children from her. So the bird is trying to do something. So the bird is trying to do good. And because of that, you catch the bird as well. So that's a bad moral lesson. The Torah does not want you to think about along those lines. You will say, you see, the bird was stupid enough to try to protect its young, and that's why I took the bird as well. Meaning they shouldn't lose, the bird shouldn't be punished for being good, basically, for trying to do something good, to protect its young. That's the reason, possibly, for this commandment. I think this is a very nice explanation. Again, we don't know the real reasons for commandments. There's a possibility. Maybe it's not the real reason. Maybe this is one of the reasons. But at least it gives some explanation. It's not necessarily a mercy so much, because, like I said, if it would be a question of mercy, Hashem would definitely find ways for us to be vegetarian. I mean, there are people who are vegetarian. Of course, for a lot of people, being vegetarian is not particularly healthy for their body. Today, there are all kinds of things that people can eat instead of meat. There are vitamins maybe for people who don't get enough iron or whatever. But in the old times, people who wanted also to be vegetarian, it was possibly not so good for their health. Although in many places people didn't have enough meat anyway, and almost lived in vegetarian diet. I remember an elderly rabbi in our synagogue a while ago. He used to tell me that they used to, a couple of generations ago, eat meat only on Yom Tov and only chicken. They didn't even have money for beef, but they would have money for chicken. This was years ago, and he was already old, so we're talking about maybe close to 100 years ago when this was actually happening, or maybe 80 years ago, I don't know. And he wasn't in America at that time. He was in Israel at that time, before the state of Israel. So there's definitely a lot of people who didn't have meat anyway, but Hashem could have definitely made our body such that we wouldn't have to eat meat. But He didn't make it us that way, and we eat meat, and we're allowed to kill animals for our food. We're not allowed to torture animals, to bring unnecessary suffering to animals, but we're allowed to kill animals for our food. This is just a way of life, and Hashem never forbid it. Maybe in the future it will be different. There were some thinkers in Israel who thought that maybe in the future times people will become vegetarian, whatever. Who knows what will be in the future. But in the meantime, meat is permitted. And in particular, a person who sees a mother bird on top of her young is allowed to take the children. In fact, there is even a mitzvah. In some writings, you could find that this is not an obligatory mitzvah of sorts. But if you want to take the young, the Torah tells you send away the mother bird and then take the young. But if you just want to pass by and do nothing, that's fine too. But there are some other sages, in particular the Mikubalim, the Kabbalists, who think that there is actually a purpose in taking the eggs, meaning you shouldn't pass by. You should really do this rare mitzvah. It's not a common mitzvah. It just happens once in a while. So if you see a mother bird hovering over its young, you shouldn't pass by. You should specifically take the young and send away the mother bird, and then take the young. And this way you fulfill an extra commandment. And in a sense, in the Zohar and Zoharic literature, in Tikkun Zohar, there's a lot of discussion that has to do with the fact that the representative of what the symbolic meaning is, the sfirot that have to do with the mother bird and its crying over its children, and us, the Jewish people, being in Galut, in exile, and Hashem's presence, Shekhinah, kind of crying over us. So there's a lot of meaning in this mitzvah, but they're not necessarily mercy. But there could be other reasons for this mitzvah. Whatever the case may be, as I said, most sages agree that there are some reasons for commandments. We just don't always know what those are. The hardest one is supposed to be the red cow, right? The ashes of the red cow, para aduma, in order to purify from the dead, from contact with dead. But there is also other mitzvot that are hard to understand, and various explanations offered. And on this I'm going to end for today. If you like this video, please press like, and please subscribe to our channel.